The Zephyrian starport glimmered like a jewel under the twin suns. Towering spires of polished metal rose into the sky, their surfaces reflecting the golden light. Ships of every shape and size hovered or glided across the docking bays, their engines humming a soft, musical tone. Among all this splendor, a ship stood out, not because of its size or color, but because of its reputation. The ship was called the Infinite Mind, and it was said to be the most advanced vessel ever built in the Zephyrian Empire. Its systems were intricate beyond comprehension, its controls a labyrinth of logic puzzles and alien symbols. Zephyrians whispered that only the top geniuses, those who had mastered the secrets of their civilization since childhood, could ever hope to pilot it. Most citizens would not even touch it. Princess Lyria, youngest daughter of the Zephyrian Empress, leaned against the railing overlooking the hangar. Her eyes sparkled with amusement as she watched the assembled crowd. The princess was a picture of grace and confidence, her silver robes flowing with the breeze of the docking bay's artificial wind. She had always been proud of her people's intelligence, and she enjoyed showing off their superiority. "Observe carefully," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the hangar. "This ship is beyond anything any of you could dream of, controlling. Only the brightest minds, the most disciplined, can even begin to understand it." Her words drew a chorus of nods and murmurs from the Zephyrian nobles gathered below. They were tall, elegant beings with luminescent skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the light. Every movement was precise, every gesture refined. In there, culture, intelligence, and control were the highest virtues. From the back of the crowd, a small, different shadow moved forward. Humans were rare in the Zephyrian starport, and their presence usually caused curiosity or scorn. Jackson was tall, wiry, and unassuming, wearing a simple flight jacket over a plain tunic. His eyes, bright and alert, scanned the hangar with an interest that bordered on amusement. Unlike the nobles, he did not seem impressed or intimidated. "Another human," muttered a Zephyrian lord to his companion, his tone laced with disdain. "Do you think he even knows which end of the ship to approach?" "I doubt it," his companion replied, smirking. "Humans are clever in small ways, but they are not like us. They follow instincts, not reason. They cannot hope to fly the Infinite Mind." Jackson overheard none of this. He simply walked forward with a quiet confidence that drew a few curious stares. When he reached the ship, he stopped and ran his hand lightly along its smooth hull. Unlike the Zephyrians, he did not approach with caution or fear. Instead, he studied it as though it were a puzzle to be solved, a challenge to be mastered. Lyria's laughter rang out like silver bells. Well, what do we have here?" she said, stepping down from the railing. "A human? Do you honestly believe you could control this ship?" Jackson looked up at her and smiled faintly. "I believe it's worth trying." The princess tilted her head, her expression a mixture of disbelief and amusement. "Trying?" she repeated. "Do you even understand what this vessel is? It is not a toy. Only those trained from birth in the art of Zephyrian navigation could hope to fly it. Humans, especially ones like you, have no chance. You would fail instantly." The crowd laughed quietly at her words. Some whispered that this human would be humiliated, perhaps even injured if he dared climb aboard. Yet Jackson did not flinch. Instead, he examined the ship's entrance panel, a complex array of holographic symbols that shimmered in shifting colors. He reached out and touched it, watching the lights react to his fingertips. Where a Zephyrian might have paused, calculating each move, he acted with intuition. The system responded to him in ways no one expected. "You are bold," Lyria said, stepping closer, her curiosity piqued despite herself. "Bold or foolish? Which do you think it is?" "Maybe both," Jackson said simply, shrugging. "But I learn fast." With that, he climbed aboard the ship. The doors closed behind him with a soft hiss, and the hangar went silent. Even the nobles, confident in their superiority, watched with bated breath. Inside, the ship was like nothing Jackson had ever seen. Panels stretched across walls and ceilings, glowing with alien symbols. Buttons and levers floated in midair, connected to the ship's neural network. Screens displayed star maps, energy readings, and patterns of data that seemed almost alive. To a Zephyrian, every motion had a strict rule, every response a calculated path. To Jackson, it was an open canvas. He touched one lever. Nothing happened. Then another. Lights flickered and a soft hum resonated through the cabin. He adjusted a dial, tilted a panel, and the ship responded, moving slightly as if testing him. Jackson laughed softly. "Well, you're stubborn," he muttered. Lyraya's voice came from a small speaker inside the cabin, the system automatically connecting her presence. "Stop touching that. You will damage something. The systems are delicate." "Delicate, maybe," Jackson replied, "but not unresponsive. I think you're underestimating it." He moved quickly now, guided by intuition more than any formal knowledge. The controls reacted to his thoughts, almost as if the ship were alive. Lyraya could hear the astonishment in her own voice. How are you doing this?" Jackson's smile was calm, confident. "I don't know exactly, but it feels right. I can feel the ship listening." Outside, the nobles were whispering among themselves. A few glanced at one another with wide eyes, their assumptions shaken. Could a human, such a simple, seemingly untrained being, really manipulate the infinite mind? Lyraya, however, was not ready to concede. She had seen brilliance before, but never in this form. She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "This is impossible. Only a true Zephyrian genius could." Before she could finish, the ship's engines purred and a soft glow radiated from the panels. The craft lifted slightly above the hangar floor, hovering as if it recognized its new pilot. The crowd gasped. Some Zephyrians murmured in disbelief. Others were too shocked to speak. Jackson's hands moved with purpose, each gesture precise, each adjustment deliberate. The ship tilted, then rotated gently in midair. Lyraya's scoff faltered. "No, that should not be possible." He glanced at her, a playful grin on his face. "Maybe your rules don't apply to humans," he said. The princess's eyes widened. She had spent her life believing that intellect was measured by strict adherence to rules and training. And yet here was a human, defying every expectation simply by thinking differently, by trusting instinct and creativity. The crowd began to murmur louder. Some were impressed, some were fearful, and some refused to believe their own eyes. A few of the older Zephyrian nobles exchanged worried glances. If a human could pilot the impossible ship, what did that mean for the Empire's carefully maintained hierarchy? Jackson lowered the ship back to the floor gently, his movements smooth and controlled. The landing was perfect, without a single error. The engines powered down, leaving the hangar in relative quiet once more. Lyraya stepped forward, her usual composure shaken. She had always believed humans were clever in small, unpredictable ways, but never capable of such mastery. You actually did it," she said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and awe. "I did what I could," Jackson said simply. "The ship listened. I didn't break anything." The princess studied him carefully. There was something in his eyes, spark of curiosity and courage that she could not deny. She realized that humans were not bound by the same limitations as Zephyrians. They could see solutions where others saw only rules. The nobles remained silent, processing what they had witnessed. For centuries, they had measured intelligence by training, discipline, and inherited knowledge. And yet, here was a human, untrained, by their standards, achieving what their finest minds could not. Lyraya's lips curved into a thoughtful smile. "Perhaps there is more to humans than I realized," she whispered to herself. Jackson climbed down from the cockpit, brushing dust from his jacket. He turned to face the princess fully. "So, what now?" he asked. "Do I get a medal? Or maybe a warm welcome into your empire?" Lyraya laughed, a sound that was both melodic and teasing. "You are bold, human. I will give you this. You have my attention. But do not think this changes anything. Flying the ship is one thing, surviving the test to come is another." Jackson nodded, his grin widening. "I like tests. I like challenges. Let's see what the next one is." The crowd watched in stunned silence. For the first time, many of them began to wonder if their assumptions about humans and about genius itself were flawed. And so, in the shimmering light of the Zephyrian starport, A human stood boldly against centuries of tradition, daring to fly what no one believed he could. Unseen by most, a quiet spark of admiration and perhaps fear lit in the eyes of Princess Lyraya. This was only the beginning. Jackson had barely settled into the pilot seat of the Infinite Mind when the hangar doors began to open. The twin suns of Zephyra cast long golden rays across the polished floors, illuminating the ship's sleek curves and intricate controls. Outside, the vast expanse of the planet's orbiting skyport stretched endlessly, a playground for ships and pilots alike. Lyraya stepped close to the observation window, her arms crossed, eyes narrowed in a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. The crowd of nobles had thinned somewhat, leaving only those who could not tear themselves away from witnessing the impossible. Many whispered among themselves, still in disbelief. How could a human, a creature considered clever only in small ways, manage to master the infinite mind? You really plan to fly it? Lyraya asked, her voice echoing softly in the cockpit. Jackson leaned back in his chair, his fingers brushing lightly across the holographic control panel. I'm going to try, he said. His eyes scanned the display, noting the intricate patterns of the ship's energy cores and navigation arrays. I want to see what she can do. And, well, I think she likes me. The princess raised an eyebrow. Likes you? The ship? You speak as if it has feelings. In a way it does, Jackson said, smiling. You don't make something this advanced without giving it a little personality. And she's responding to me. Watch. He pressed a series of keys, and the ship shuddered gently as the engines powered up. Panels glowed brighter, and the subtle hum of the vessel rose into a steady, melodic tone. Jackson's hands moved with confident precision, not following the expected sequences of the Zephyrians, but improvising, feeling the rhythm of the machine. Lyraya watched, fascinated despite herself. Every system responded to him in ways that defied Zephyrian logic. The ship's movements were smooth, almost playful, as though it were dancing to an unseen tune. You're not supposed to do it that way, she murmured. No one has ever bypassed the initialization protocols like that. Maybe no one thought it could be done differently, Jackson replied. I don't like doing things the usual way. Usually the rules just slow me down. Lyraya's eyes flicked to the display screen. And what if you make a mistake? The ship could shut down, or worse. Or worse, Jackson said, tilting his head. I'd learned something. Mistakes are just part of understanding. For the first time, Lyraya hesitated. Humans were unpredictable. They did not always follow the rules, and they did not fear failure, the way Zephyrians did. It was reckless, but in a strange way it was brilliant. Jackson pressed a lever, and the ship's engines roared to life, the hum swelling into a steady, deep resonance. Slowly, almost cautiously, he lifted the ship from the hangar floor. The engines glowed with a soft blue light, and the massive doors above opened fully to reveal the void of space beyond the station. Outside, the planet's orbit glittered with distant stars and smaller ships moving in predictable paths. Jackson's eyes narrowed, taking in the orbital patterns, the drifting cargo vessels, and the automated defense drones patrolling the area. Not bad for a first liftoff, he muttered, but let's see how she handles real movement. The ship tilted slightly and Jackson pushed the controls forward. It responded immediately, gliding through the hangar bay with a grace that seemed almost impossible. The nobles watching from observation platforms gasped and murmured. Some were impressed, some were terrified. This is impossible, one elder said under his breath. No human, no outsider could manage such control. It defies every principle we know. Lyraya frowned, though she could not hide her growing fascination. I don't understand, she admitted. How are you doing this? Jackson shrugged. I listen to the ship. I don't fight it. We're working together, not against each other. As the ship exited the hangar, the full view of Zephyra's orbital city came into sight. The orbiting platforms stretched for miles, with docking bays, observation decks, and energy pylons connecting each structure. Automated shuttles zipped between platforms, following strict flight paths. It was an orderly world, one built on discipline and precision. Jackson's human mind, however, saw opportunity in patterns others ignored. He weaved the infinite mind through narrow gaps between platforms, spiraling around automated shuttles in ways that no Zephyrian pilot would dare attempt. Each maneuver was precise yet daring, a combination of instinct and creativity. Laraya's voice came over the comm again. "Stop, you will collide with a cargo shuttle." Jackson grinned. "Relax. We're fine." And indeed, the ship twisted through the orbital lanes, narrowly avoiding collisions, gliding past energy pylons, and spiraling with a smooth elegance. It was exhilarating and terrifying for the onlookers. "Humans," Laraya whispered. "They see things differently. They don't follow rules, they create new ones." The ship climbed higher into the station's orbital lanes, and Jackson began testing its speed and maneuverability. He pushed it forward, then banked sharply, letting the engines hum with barely contained power. The holographic displays flickered as the ship adjusted to his commands in real time. "You're bending it," Laraya said in disbelief. "It's not supposed to respond that way. You're changing the way it works." "Maybe it needed a fresh perspective," Jackson said. "Sometimes you can't solve a problem by doing the same thing over and over." Outside the observation window, the other ships watched in astonishment. Automated traffic control units sent warnings, but the ship responded faster than their calculations could predict. Jackson maneuvered through a dense asteroid field set up as a test course for advanced pilots. The Zephyrians had designed it to be impossible for anyone but the best to navigate. Yet Jackson did not slow down. He tilted the ship, twisting and turning, through the rocks. At one point, a massive asteroid drifted into his path. Instead of slowing, he angled the engines, skimming past its surface by mere meters. The hull hummed, and the ship's lights danced with energy. Laraya gasped. No human, no outsider could possibly survive that. He winked at her through the cockpit display. "I told you, I like challenges." Inside the ship, the AI began to adapt. It had never experienced a pilot who ignored its expected protocols. Jackson's touch was chaotic to the machine at first, but soon the ship seemed to anticipate his intentions. Panels lit up in sequence, energy fields adjusted, and the craft responded with almost sentient grace. "Interesting," Laraya murmured. She had to admit even to herself that this human was extraordinary. Where Zephyrians prided themselves on rigid logic, humans thrived on creativity and risk. The combination, it seemed, could surpass pure intelligence. Jackson's grin widened as he looped through the asteroid field, performing maneuvers that were impossible by standard Zephyrian calculations. Every twist and turn was a test, a proof that humans could not only adapt, they could innovate. Suddenly, a warning flashed on the console. A rogue energy drone, part of the training simulations, approached at high speed. It fired an energy net meant to immobilize the ship. "Looks like it wants a piece of us," Jackson muttered. "Evasive maneuvers," Laraya shouted, her voice tense. "Do not let it hit you." Jackson tilted the ship sharply, dodging the net with effortless grace. He twisted, spun, and launched a counter-maneuver, sending the drone spinning harmlessly into the distance. The ship hummed in response almost approvingly, as though acknowledging the skill of its pilot. The nobles watching the display gasped again. It's impossible," one exclaimed. "No human could manage that." Yet Jackson did. Time, and again he navigated obstacles, dodged hazards, and tested the limits of the infinite mind. Each maneuver seemed reckless, yet it was precise. Each challenge seemed dangerous, yet it was mastered. Finally, after what felt like hours, though it had only been minutes, he brought the ship to a gentle hover near the central platform. He powered down the engines slowly, letting the ship settle gracefully. Silence fell over the observation deck. The noble stared, wide-eyed and speechless. Laraya took a deep breath, struggling to hide her admiration. You actually did it. You flew it. And you didn't just survive. You excelled." Jackson leaned back in his seat, his face relaxed, and smiling. "Thanks. She's a good ship. You just need to listen to her, not control her." The princess studied him for a long moment, her mind racing. For centuries, Zephyrians had measured intelligence by logic, training, and discipline. Yet here was a human untrained by their standards, achieving feats that even the greatest Zephyrians could not. Laraya's voice was softer now, almost thoughtful. You are unlike anything I have ever seen. Humans, they are unpredictable. Dangerous, yes, but brilliant in ways we cannot measure. Jackson laughed lightly. I'll take that as a compliment. Outside the observation window, the other ships resumed their courses, automated systems adjusting to the disruption. Yet the whispers continued. Across the station, Zephyrians were beginning to realize something important. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their ingenuity, creativity, and boldness could challenge the very foundation of Zephyrian expectations. And as Jackson prepared for the next challenge, adjusting the ship's controls and testing its systems further, one thing became clear. The story of a human who could fly the impossible ship was only just beginning. The orbital platform of Zephyra was alive with motion. Ships of every kind glided past docking bays, while automated drones hummed quietly along predetermined paths. At the center of this vast network floated the trial course, a series of hazards, obstacles, and navigation challenges designed to test the skill of only the most elite pilots. Today, however, the trial course would face something it had never faced before: a human. Jackson stood at the entrance of the course, the cockpit of the infinite mind glowing softly around him. His fingers danced across the controls, testing reactions and adjusting the ship's neural interface. He had mastered the ship's basic functions, but the trial course was another level entirely. It was designed to break even the most confident Zephyrian pilots. Princess Lyrea hovered near the observation deck, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the ship. She had seen Jackson's talent already, but the trial would push him further than any casual maneuvers in open space. This was where genius or failure would reveal itself. "You understand what this course is?" she asked, though she knew the answer. Jackson leaned back, a small grin on his face. "I do, but I don't follow the usual rules. I see patterns differently. That's my advantage." Lyrea's eyes narrowed. "The advantage of chaos," she muttered, more to herself than to him. The trial course began with a warning siren. Gates of shimmering energy rose from the platform, forming a maze of corridors that twisted and turned in ways impossible to navigate without precision. Automated drones zipped through the corridors, firing harmless but blinding energy bursts at anything that strayed off course. The course demanded sharp reflexes, perfect timing, and the ability to anticipate movement before it happened. Jackson's hands moved over the controls as the ship hummed in response. Unlike Zephyrian pilots, who memorized every obstacle and practiced until perfection, Jackson trusted instinct. He did not hesitate or second guess. He read the flow of the course like a human reads the wind, seeing paths where others saw walls. The first gate approached, glowing with a soft violet light. Jackson tilted the ship slightly, gliding through its center with barely a centimeter to spare. The ship responded smoothly, tilting and adjusting as though it were an extension of his own body. "Impossible," muttered one elder watching from the observation deck. "He has no formal training. How can he anticipate the timing so perfectly?" Lyrea watched in silence, her mind racing. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but Jackson's unpredictability was controlled, refined by intuition and instinct. Every movement, every decision felt deliberate, yet it broke all Zephyrian conventions. Ahead, the course twisted sharply. Energy barriers rose and fell in complex patterns. A drone zipped across the path, firing a short burst of light. Jackson tilted the ship, spiraling through the gaps. The energy net passed harmlessly above, and the drone spun away, confused by the maneuver. "Did you see that?" a young Zephyrian shouted to a companion. "He didn't follow any known path. He made his own." "Humans," the companion whispered. "They are different." Jackson's hands moved like dancers over the controls, guiding the ship with confidence. He flipped the ship sideways to dodge a swinging barrier, then rolled it forward to slip through a narrow opening in the next set of energy gates. The ship responded with seamless grace, almost as if it anticipated his intentions. Lyrea's lips pressed into a thin line. "He's not just surviving, he's controlling the course itself." The next section was a series of spinning energy rings, rotating at high speed. Each ring required precise timing to pass without touching its surface. Zephyrians trained for years to master this part. Jackson, however, studied the rings for a moment, then relied on instinct. With a tilt of the ship and a small push of the thrusters, he glided through the first ring, then the second, then the third. The ship's engines hummed in approval, the lights shimmering like a heartbeat in rhythm with his movements. "Unbelievable," Lariah whispered. No one has ever done this before." But the trial was only beginning. Ahead, the course shifted to an asteroid field. Massive, rocks drifted unpredictably, some stationary, others moving with slow but deliberate speed. Zephyrian pilots relied on calculations and memorization to pass, but the unpredictability of movement made mistakes common, even for the elite. Jackson's human instincts, however, thrived here. He weaved the ship through the field with skill and creativity, adjusting on the fly. He anticipated movements, reading the flow of the asteroids almost like a river. Every twist and turn was precise yet flexible. One massive asteroid drifted directly toward his path. A Zephyrian pilot would have slowed, calculated an exact trajectory, and moved cautiously. Jackson, however, tilted the ship, letting the engines slide along a curved path, skimming past its surface by mere meters. The ship hummed in satisfaction, responding to his daring. Lariah's eyes widened. "That should be impossible," she exclaimed. "He's taking risks no Zephyrian would dare, and he's making them succeed." Jackson laughed softly. "Sometimes you have to trust the ship, and trust yourself." The trial escalated further. Energy walls began to rise and fall in erratic patterns. Drones fired bursts of light and small kinetic pulses, and tight tunnels demanded precision beyond human imagination. Yet Jackson adapted to every obstacle. Where Zephyrians relied on rules and repetition, he relied on creativity and instinct. The nobles watching grew uneasy. Some whispered in disbelief, others in fear. If a human could master this course, what did it mean for the hierarchy of the Zephyrian Empire? Their rules, their systems, their measure of genius, it all seemed suddenly fragile. Lariah's thoughts were racing. For centuries, her people had valued strict logic above all else. Yet this human, with no formal training in their systems, was outperforming their elite. He was not following the expected rules. He was creating new ones in real time. The course's final challenge appeared: a narrow corridor with rotating energy barriers, high-speed drones, and an unstable gravity, field designed to throw off even the most skilled pilots. Zephyrians called this section the Gauntlet of Minds, believing it to be the ultimate test. Jackson's eyes lit up. "All right," he said softly, almost to himself. "Let's see what you've got." The ship entered the corridor. The energy barriers spun faster than expected. A drone zipped past, firing bursts of light. Jackson tilted, rolled, and spiraled the ship, letting it move fluidly with his instincts. The barriers passed harmlessly. The drone was outmaneuvered, and the unstable gravity field seemed to bend around his path. Lariah's hand went to her mouth. He's doing it. He's actually completing the gauntlet." The final meters were the hardest. The corridor narrowed, forcing the ship to navigate a series of impossible turns while the drones accelerated unpredictably. Jackson's heart pounded, but his hands were steady. He adjusted, twisted, and let the ship respond like an extension of his own body. Then, with a final tilt and a gentle push of the thrusters, the infinite mind shot through the end of the corridor. The ship hovered perfectly, engines glowing softly, systems humming in harmony. Silence fell over the observation deck. Nobles stared in shock, unable to speak. Even Lariah, usually confident and composed, could not hide her astonishment. Jackson leaned back in the cockpit, a small satisfied smile on his face. "That was fun," he said simply. For the first time, Lariah saw the brilliance of humanity in its purest form. Not the rules, not the memorized knowledge, but creativity, adaptability, and courage. Humans could face challenges differently, seeing solutions where others saw only obstacles. "You," Lariah whispered, still catching her breath. "You are not just skilled, you are extraordinary. I do not understand how, but you have done what no Zephyrian has ever done." Jackson shrugged. "Maybe it's not about understanding. Maybe it's about trying, failing, and trying again until something works." Lariah studied him for a long moment. "Humans. They are unpredictable. They are dangerous. But brilliant. Outside, the other Zephyrian nobles were beginning to whisper, some in awe, others in fear. The implications were clear. If a human could master the impossible, what else could they do? Jackson powered down the engines, letting the ship settle. "Well," he said lightly. "What's next?" Loraya shook her head, still processing what she had seen. "Next, you survive the consequences," she said. But even as she spoke, she knew the truth. Humans with their creativity and courage could change the galaxy. And for Jackson, the trial was only the beginning. The orbital sky above Zephyra shimmered with 1,000 lights. Ships of all sizes moved between docking platforms, their engines humming like a chorus of mechanical bees. The station itself seemed calm, orderly, perfect. Yet beneath this calm, a ripple of chaos was about to unfold. Jackson was in the cockpit of the Infinite Mind, checking systems and adjusting controls. Flying the trial course had been exhilarating, but he knew the real test was coming. He could feel it in the hum of the ship, in the subtle vibrations of its engines. The Infinite Mind was alive, and it responded to him with trust and energy. Princess Loraya watched from the observation deck. She had spent hours studying him, observing how he piloted the ship. The trial had revealed something important. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability was paired with intelligence, creativity, and courage. Jackson had survived the impossible course, not because he followed the rules, but because he found new ways to solve problems. Suddenly, alarms blared across the station. Red lights flashed, bathing the platform in a tense glow. Loraya's voice came through the comm system. "Jackson, something is happening. A rogue fleet is approaching the station." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "Rogue fleet? How many?" "Multiple ships. They are armed and moving fast. The station's defense systems are already engaging, but they will be overwhelmed if they continue." Loraya's voice trembled slightly. She had seen many threats before, but never one that combined raw aggression with speed and precision like this. Jackson adjusted his seat, gripping the controls firmly. "Show me their positions." The display lit up, revealing a cluster of unknown ships heading straight toward the station. They were sleek, fast, and heavily armed. Their formation suggested experience and coordination. "They're not here for negotiation," Jackson said grimly. "They want to destroy or capture the station." Loraya's eyes widened. "Then you must stop them. You're the only one who can maneuver the Infinite Mind like that. The station's defenses will not be enough." Jackson nodded. "Understood. Let's make this fun." He powered the ship's engines fully, and the Infinite Mind responded with a deep, resonant hum. The ship glided smoothly out of the dock, its lights casting patterns across the platform. Jackson tilted and twisted, bringing the ship into a perfect defensive position. The first enemy ship fired. A streak of energy shot toward the station, but Jackson anticipated it. He angled the Infinite Mind, letting the shot pass harmlessly by, and then fired a precision burst of energy from the ship's auxiliary systems. The enemy ship jolted, spinning slightly out of formation. Loraya gasped. "You're counter-attacking, but they outnumber you." Jackson's eyes sparkled. "Numbers aren't everything." He banked sharply, weaving between two enemy ships, dodging their fire effortlessly. Each maneuver was daring yet precise. Every movement seemed risky, but he knew the ship would respond to him. He trusted the Infinite Mind, and it trusted him. The enemy fleet adjusted, trying to trap him. They coordinated, anticipating the patterns of a typical pilot. But Jackson was not typical. He twisted and looped, darting through gaps no one expected. Energy bursts missed by inches, the ship gliding like a shadow between beams of light. Loraya watched, her heart pounding. The station's defenders tried to help, firing their own energy shields and drones. Yet the rogues' skill and speed made the defense difficult. Without Jackson, the station would have been in serious danger. "You're incredible," she whispered. I can't believe what I'm seeing." Jackson dodged a rapid series of energy nets, then used the ship's thrusters to propel himself behind one of the larger enemy vessels. With a swift adjustment, he disabled the ship's engines temporarily, spinning it harmlessly into open space. The other enemies hesitated. One by one, he disrupted their formation, using unconventional movements that no Zephyrian pilot would dare attempt. Humans are unpredictable, Lyria murmured to herself. They are dangerous, but brilliant. The rogue fleet was relentless, but Jackson's creative tactics kept them off balance. He moved faster than their calculations could anticipate, using sharp maneuvers, spins, and sudden thrusts. The ship seemed almost alive, dancing around enemy fire with instinctive grace. One particularly large enemy ship broke away from the formation, heading straight for the station's main energy core. If it succeeded, the platform would be destroyed. Jackson tilted the controls, boosting the infinite mind forward. He spun through the void, dodging bursts of energy, and intercepted the rogue vessel. With a precise strike, he targeted its propulsion system. Sparks flew and the enemy ship slowed, drifting harmlessly into space. The remaining ships hesitated, unsure how to respond. Jackson's tactics had thrown them off balance entirely. Lyria's hand went to her mouth. He's doing it. He's saving the station. But the battle was not over. A swarm of smaller ships approached from another angle. Jackson adjusted, weaving through the swarm with the same confidence and skill he had used earlier. He fired carefully, disabling ships without destroying them, using momentum and precision rather than brute force. The infinite mind responded to his every thought, moving with a grace that no Zephyrian pilot had ever seen. Jackson, you are extraordinary, Lyria shouted. But don't underestimate them. They are clever, and they will adapt. I know, Jackson said calmly. But they can't predict what we do next. He angled the ship toward the core of the enemy formation, performing maneuvers that seemed impossible. The smaller ships scattered, unable to follow his unpredictable path. The larger vessels tried to coordinate, but Jackson's speed and creativity were overwhelming. As he moved, the station's defenders began to recover their confidence. Inspired by his skill, they coordinated more effectively, targeting enemy ships Jackson had disabled or distracted. The rogue fleet, once confident and aggressive, began to falter. Lyria's eyes filled with admiration. He is not just a pilot. He is a strategist, a genius in ways we cannot measure. Jackson tilted the ship sharply, dodging a final energy blast. He fired a calculated shot, sending the last enemy ship spinning out of control. The rogue fleet had been defeated, retreating quickly from the station's orbital space. Silence fell. The alarms ceased, and the station's systems returned to normal. Nobles and citizens alike stared in awe. They had witnessed a human using creativity, courage, and intelligence save the station from what could have been total destruction. Lyria floated to the edge of the observation deck, her mind racing. She had always believed her people's intelligence was unmatched, their training perfect. Yet here was a human, untrained by their standards, achieving what no Zephyrian pilot could. He had not only survived the trial, but had saved the station. In the process, Jackson powered down the infinite mind, letting it hover calmly near the docking bay. He leaned back in his seat, relaxed as though the battle had been nothing more than a game. Are you all right? Lyria asked over the comm. I'm fine, Jackson said. But I think the infinite mind enjoyed that. She responded perfectly. We worked together. The princess stared at him, her thoughts a whirlwind. She had underestimated humans for centuries, assuming they could never match Zephyrian intelligence. Now she saw the truth. Humans were not only capable, but remarkable. They approached problems differently, finding solutions where rules and tradition failed. The nobles began to murmur among themselves. Some were in awe, some in disbelief, and some were fearful. If a human could master the impossible ship and outthink elite Zephyrians in combat, what did it mean for the future of the Empire? Lyria's voice was quiet, almost to herself. Perhaps humans are more than I thought. Perhaps they are a force to be respected, even feared for their creativity and courage. Jackson stepped out of the cockpit, brushing dust from his jacket. He glanced around at the nobles, who looked unsure of how to react. He smiled. Well, that was exciting, he said simply. Do you have any more challenges, or are we done? For today? Lyria hesitated. Done. For now. But this changes everything. Humans, your kind, cannot be ignored. You have proven something extraordinary. The station buzzed with activity as systems returned to normal. The rogue fleet had been defeated and the defenders celebrated quietly. Yet the impact of Jackson's action stretched beyond victory. For the first time, many Zephyrians began to see humans not as inferior outsiders, but as beings of remarkable potential. Jackson looked at Lyria, a faint grin on his face. So, what now? Are we allies, competitors, or something else entirely? The princess studied him carefully. We will see, she said. But one thing is certain. You have changed the way we think. Humans. You are extraordinary. And with that, a new chapter began. Humans were no longer outsiders in the Zephyrian Empire. They were capable, creative, and brave, a force that could change the course of history. The Zephyrian station gleamed in the golden light of the twin suns, calm once more after the chaos of the rogue fleet attack. Docking platforms hummed, ships glided smoothly along their courses, and automated drones patrolled the vast orbital network. The citizens and nobles of Zephyra moved about with a mixture of awe and curiosity, still processing the events that had unfolded. At the center of it all stood the Infinite Mind, sleek and powerful, its engines softly glowing as it rested in the docking bay. Jackson stepped down from the cockpit, brushing dust from his jacket, his expression calm and confident. He had faced impossible challenges, outmaneuvered a rogue fleet, and mastered a ship no one thought a human could fly. Yet he remained humble, as though it had all been just another adventure. Princess Lyria approached him, her usual poise tempered by genuine admiration. She had spent the last hours observing him, noting every maneuver, every decision. Her previous skepticism had been replaced by respect, deep respect for human ingenuity and courage. You've done more than I could have imagined, she said quietly. You've flown what no one thought possible, defeated the rogue fleet and saved the station. You've changed everything. Jackson smiled lightly. I just did what I could. The ship helped too. She responds to me in ways no one expected, and I trust her instincts as much as my own. Lyria studied him carefully, her mind racing. For centuries, Zephyrians had measured intelligence by rules, discipline, and inherited knowledge. Yet here was a human, untrained in their ways, achieving feats that their finest minds could not. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their creativity and courage gave them an edge no formal training could match. Your kind humans, you are extraordinary, she said finally. I underestimated you, and I am glad to admit it. The nobles and citizens gathered on the observation deck whispered among themselves. Some were still stunned, others inspired, and a few were even fearful. If a human could accomplish what Jackson had done, what other feats might humans achieve? Could they challenge the very foundations of Zephyrian superiority? Jackson glanced around at the crowd, his expression calm. I don't want to challenge anyone. I just want to explore, learn, and see what's out there. If humans can help or inspire, that's even better. Lyria nodded slowly. You've proven that brilliance is not measured by tradition alone. Creativity, courage, and adaptability, your traits, are as powerful as any formal knowledge. Perhaps more. The station commander approached cautiously. Princess Lyria, the humans. This pilot, he has done what no one expected. The station owes him a debt of gratitude. Indeed, Lyria said, her voice firm. He has not only saved the station, but also proven that humans are capable of far more than we realized. This changes how we view them, permanently. Jackson chuckled softly. I didn't do it to prove anything. I just acted. I trusted the ship, trusted myself, and figured things out as I went. That is exactly the point, Lyria replied. Zephyrians rely on rules, on careful study. Humans rely on intuition, creativity, and courage. That combination is remarkable. The news of his success spread quickly throughout the empire. Scholars, nobles, and ordinary citizens alike debated and discussed the implications. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were beings of potential, capable of achieving what Zephyrians considered impossible. Jackson had shown that sometimes brilliance comes not from following rules, but from thinking differently. In the following days, Jackson was approached by diplomats, scholars, and inventors, all curious about his methods. Some wanted to study him, others wanted to learn from him, and a few were openly eager to recruit him for missions beyond the station. Yet Jackson remained humble, focusing on understanding the ship and the universe beyond. Lariah stayed close, observing him with fascination. She had always valued intelligence and skill, yet she had never seen anything like this. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability was a strength. Where Zephyrians followed logic and tradition, humans innovated. They solved problems differently, saw opportunities others missed, and dared to take risks that could lead to greatness. "You've taught me something important," Lariah said, one evening as they watched the station's lights shimmer against the backdrop of space. "I've learned that intelligence alone is not enough. Creativity, courage, and adaptability are just as vital. Your kind, your perspective, it changes how we see the galaxy." Jackson smiled. "I'm glad you see it that way. Humans are nothing if not willing to try, even when the odds are against them." The princess nodded. "And you have proven that the impossible is only impossible until someone dares to try. You have inspired more than just me. You've inspired the whole station, perhaps the entire empire." The station's leadership recognized his contributions officially. He was offered honors, recognition, and even a chance to join Zephyrian exploration fleets. Yet Jackson declined formal positions. He preferred freedom, adventure, and discovery. Titles and rules mattered less to him than the thrill of the unknown and the chance to push boundaries. "Recognition is nice," he said, "but I'd rather keep exploring. There's a universe out there, and I want to see it all." Lariah smiled, a mix of admiration and amusement on her face. "Then perhaps this is the beginning of a new partnership, humans and Zephyrians, learning from each other, exploring together." For the first time, Zephyrians saw humans not as simple outsiders, but as equals, or even superiors in some ways. Jackson's actions had shattered centuries of assumptions and prejudice. His ingenuity, creativity, and bravery had proven that humans were not limited by rigid rules, that they could adapt, innovate, and excel in ways no one had imagined. The station's citizens began to change their view of humans. Scholars wrote papers, students asked questions, and even young nobles began to dream of exploring space with humans at their side. Jackson had not only mastered the impossible ship, but he had also opened minds, showing that potential could come from anywhere, not just from tradition or heritage. Lariah approached Jackson one final time before he left the station. "You have changed more than the station. You have changed how we see ourselves. You've shown us the power of creativity, courage, and daring. I respect you deeply, human." Jackson nodded, his eyes warm. "Thank you. That means a lot. But the galaxy is bigger than any one station or empire. There's so much to see, to learn, to experience. Maybe we'll meet again on some other adventure." The princess smiled. "I hope so, and next time perhaps we will not underestimate each other." As Jackson climbed aboard the Infinite Mind, the ship seemed to hum with excitement, ready for its next journey. He powered up the engines and lifted off from the docking platform, soaring smoothly into the stars. The station watched in awe as the human and the incredible ship vanished into the depths of space. The legacy of that day would be remembered forever. Humans were no longer outsiders, they were pioneers, adventurers, and thinkers capable of greatness beyond imagination. Jackson's courage, creativity, and mastery of the impossible had proven that humanity's potential was limitless. Lariah watched the stars long after he had gone. "Perhaps humans are the greatest lesson we could ever learn," she whispered. "Not in intellect alone, but in daring, creativity, and courage. They are extraordinary indeed." And so the galaxy began to change. One human, with nothing but ingenuity, courage, and a willingness to try, had shown that the impossible could be achieved. Zephyrians began to rethink their assumptions, scholars began to rewrite their teachings, and explorers across the empire looked to the stars with new hope. Jackson, meanwhile, continued his journey, seeking adventure, discovering new worlds, and testing the limits of human potential. The Infinite Mind responded to him as never before, a partnership of trust. intuition, and brilliance. Together, they would explore the unknown, carving a path for humanity across the galaxy, and thus, the legend of the human who could fly what no one else could became known throughout the stars. Not because of formal training, titles, or inherited skill, but because of courage, creativity, and the simple determination to try.